trade standoff, trade war, tariff standoff. China digs in. Let's take a look.
Digging in. Americans are waking up to a whole new escalation in the global trade war. Beijing is hiking its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods today from 84% to 125%. And for the first time since this all started, we're actually hearing from the Chinese President Xi Jinping himself. Xi's saying that his nation is, quote unquote, not afraid, and also warning, quote, there are no winners in a trade war, and going against the world will only lead to self-isolation. This after President Trump raised tariffs on Chinese goods even higher, 145% now, as we're all trying to keep track. The White House says they're waiting for China to pick up the phone.
We're so dumb. We're so stupid. I'm sorry. There will come a point where the bottom will fall out of this. And I think Americans will come to the cold, hard realization, like getting slapped in the face with some very cold water to hopefully shake you out of this stupor, that we don't have the motion that we think we have when it comes to global trade, at least. I think given the Chinese track record, Xi will most likely extend a helping hand at a certain point. Given their track record, given what they always do, given the restraint that they demonstrate with regular frequency, I suspect that China will bail us out again because they want stability. They want the regular business as usual politics to continue, so they can continue along their journey of development. It is very, very frustrating that America is trying to up the world with no discernible, tangible policy goals attached to it. It is a real, I'm fucking up global trade because I'm bored moment from the Trump administration. I'm telling you right now, I do agree China will probably budge first, but I don't know. Trump and Xi's relationship is very inconsistent and confusing. I don't think that this is about the personal relationship between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump. I think this is about stability and what China wants. The runway that China has, both due to its own internal governance, due to the fact that it's a command economy, due to the fact that it has so much manufacturing power, there is no blinking first. Here's what a country that would actually want to dominate the globe would do in this circumstance. Let's say I'm one of Xi Jinping's advisors. I'm one of those guys that's like, I don't want stability, okay? I want to destroy America. I want to destroy the dollar. You know what I would do? I would go to all of our trading partners, all of the Asian trading partners, the European trading partners, set up trade deals, tell them we will actually not flood your marketplace with our goods that are going to wipe out your own domestic economies, but on the one condition that you just short the American dollar to the best of your ability. Just at a moment where the American reserves are at its weakest, where confidence is diminished in the dollar, we will now move in the direction of de-dollarization. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. There's a lot of foreign debt. Like a lot of foreign nations, Japan, China, many of these countries own a lot of the American foreign debt. You could just forcibly claw that away from the United States of America because China, unlike the United States of America right now, has more industrial stability. Like China and the yuan could technically become the global trade currency. It's not something that is in their interest overall. But if they wanted to dominate the globe, they could do that. This is a great opportunity for them, just like it was a great opportunity for them to forcibly take Taiwan if they wanted to do so when America was too busy dealing with Israel and dealing with Ukraine and Israel at the same time. But they didn't do that. Why didn't they do that? Because perhaps they're a lot more restrained and a lot more focused on the future than we are. This is precisely the reason why I think they're going to extend a hand of help to the United States of America, even though America's up global trade on its own right now. America is doing an own goal. With the way bond yields have already risen drastically, if all the foreign bondholders mass sold it would cause yields to skyrocket and America would default on their debts to the American bondholders. That's what I'm saying. I feel like, look, I'm not an economist and I'm not the most knowledgeable on this stuff. It is a little confusing to me, for sure. But I do feel like if there was an opportunity to destabilize the United States of America, this would be the very opportunity to do so. All you need is a couple, maybe like Japan, or at least a couple trade partners that hold a lot of American treasuries to just force America to default on their debt, something that hasn't ever happened because the entire global trade is on the American dollar. It is the most stable thing that you can buy into. And I think that that would create so much instability that obviously China doesn't want that.
It says essentially the same thing about the United States. This very clearly showing what a tit for tat looks like, sending markets tumbling Thursday. But President Trump still optimistic when meeting with his.
USA is 30% of our consumption. 30% of consumption, top 10% of incomes is over 50% of our local consumption. If prices rise, it would only affect the lower 90% in the U.S. This roughly translates to 15% globally. I think we're overestimating our worth. I think you're misunderstanding. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something entirely different than our consumption engine. I think our consumption power is significant for global trade. In terms of our relationship with China, it's not negligible, but it's negligible enough for China to basically weather the storm. But that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about what could potentially happen if another world power that has the capability of becoming the global reserve currency, which I don't even think China has at this point, or at least has the appetite to become that at this point, because that would require too much foreign intervention, way more than I think what China would choose to do at this stage. I'm talking about the entire system collapsing, which is crazy because I think Donald Trump, as stupid as he is, kind of understands that reality, which is why he's just basically forcing all of these vassal states to do this double tithing system where not only have we benefited from offering IOUs to other countries with a profound dollar purchasing power, where we don't have to do the manufacturing, we just get to, take over the benefits. Also, on top of that, now you have to pay us for the privilege of us dominating the fucking entire planet with our global reserve currency status, while simultaneously you have to pay us for that privilege. And there's not really anything you can do about it, because if it falls apart, then everything falls apart. Yeah, I saw this relevant clip from Jack Ma. He's asked a similar question as well. Let's hear what he says here.
The Americans said, we just want to control the IP, we just want technology, we just want the brand to leave the lower end jobs for the world. Great strategy. Past 30 years, IBM, Cisco, Microsoft, they made tons of money. The profit they made are much more than the 4 largest banks in China. But where'd the money go? Past 30 years, the American had 13 wars, spending $14.2 trillion. The money going there. What if they spend a part of that money on building up the infrastructure, helping the white collars and blue collars? No matter how strategy good it is, you're supposed to spend money on your own people. And the other money, which I'm curious about, is that when I was young, I heard America is bad. Ford and Boeing, those big manufacturing companies. The last 10, 20 years, I heard about is Silicon Valley and Wall Street. The money go to the Wall Street. And what happened? Year 2008. The financial crisis wiped out $19.2 trillion USA alone. They wiped out all the white collars and destroyed 34 million jobs globally. So what if the money is not Wall Street? What if the money spent on the Middle East, Middle West of the United States, developing the industry there? That could be changed a lot. So it's not the other countries steal jobs from you guys. It is your strategy.
Endless profit seeking that has caused domestic instability in this country, that is also causing global instability. Because the reality of the matter is, if America wanted to extend a lifeline to American empire, it would at least abide by like Keynesian principles and engage in more redistributive policies in an effort to ensure that it has like at least some semblance of a manufacturing base, or rather good paying jobs and less instability internally in the nation. But these guys are so short-term profit oriented, profit that stays at the top, profit that has to be retained by the most powerful individuals because of their supercharged pro-capitalist dogmatic ways of thinking that they have used, abused, and pillaged all the way to the very end. And now we're staring down the barrel of the gun. In the process, China was able to take advantage of that situation and the endless appetite for capital owners and the endless defense of capital owners from the American empire to basically say, yeah, we'll manufacture your shit. It's cool.
Cabinet.
We think we're in very good shape. We think we're doing very well. Again, there'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Stock futures are right now up across the board. Let's see if they stay a beautiful thing today. But what is concerning investors a lot right at the moment, the U.S. dollar falling to its weakest level against the euro in 3 years. CNN's Elena Treen at the White House for us once again. CNN's Mark Stewart, we're not letting him go. He's in Beijing for us. Mark, tell us more about China's counterpunch and what it's going to mean.
Hi, Kate. Good morning. Look, none of this is a surprise. These latest tariffs are very much in the Chinese playbook. But what's very attention-getting to me is the fact that China is now saying it's not going to raise tariffs any higher, saying it has other weapons, almost making fun of the United States for raising the stakes, raising the numbers so high. Let me share with you some remarks we got late today from a government official here in Beijing who said that the United States is engaging in nothing more than a numbers game with no real economic significance, going on to say the United States is exposing itself as a participant in weaponizing tariffs, as a tool of bullying and coercion, turning itself into a joke. So that is the latest where China stands in this back and forth tit for tat. The other big headline of the day is that we are hearing from Chinese President Xi Jinping, really the first time since this whole trade war escalated to such a high level. The big headline is that he is saying China is not afraid. These are remarks that were made with the Spanish Prime Minister here in Beijing.
How can anyone look at the situation right now and go, oh, dude, we're killing it, dude. We're killing it. Like, how do you look? How can you be so stupid? Like Donald Trump's statements, if you are optics focused, if you're like an animal, okay, barely capable of critical thought, you can still look at the optics of the situation of Donald Trump's attitude shifting dramatically over the course of the past week, where he went from, we're going to destroy China, China is terrified, they're so scared, to, why won't China call me? China, you really need to call me. Please call me, China. China, call me. I've learned Mandarin. I say, what's up, Beijing, too? Call me. Too much winning. He literally went from saying China is going to come and eat our ass to like, please call me. It would be really nice if you called me. You could be the dumbest person on the planet and still recognize when someone is being desperate.
And according to state media, he said that China is going to continue to remain.
Their lack of interest in global dominance does not stem from the fact that they're magnanimous, dude. It is still a self-interested position. What do you not understand? I'm not saying they're fucking awesome and kind-hearted. This is something that people do not comprehend about it, okay? Their lack of interest in global dominance comes from self-interest. That's it. It's not altruistic.
And confident, it's going to remain focused, saying there are no real winners in the trade war. Kate, the language that we're hearing from Xi Jinping is very consistent with what we've heard from other government officials over the last few days. And as you mentioned, as far as the possibility of a phone call between Xi Jinping and President Trump, not in the near future. That's the messaging that we're feeling from Beijing, at least.
And that is quite a statement that you got from that government official. Just, the gloves are off now in terms of how the two sides are going to be talking about it. We will need to stand by and see how Donald Trump responds to that. But also stand by with me, Mark. I'm going to get to the White House and get to Elena Treen here. Elena, are you getting any reaction yet this morning to this escalation from China?
So far, the White House has not responded to the latest remarks from China or from President Xi. But what I will say is that the White House has been very dug in on its position as it relates to China. They're acting very defiant in this kind of trade tit for tat that we are seeing. But I think what's been very clear so far, Kate, is that this position is not going to be tenable for much longer. At some point, the two sides are going to need to really open lines of communications. Now, we actually have a story out this morning kind of breaking all of this down, but at the crux of it, Kate, is this. Two White House officials tell me that the president and the U.S. will not reach out to China first. The president has made it clear to his team and to his advisors that he wants China to come to them. And really, he wants to have a high-level meeting.
I told you already, China will. I think China will call first. They'll use this period of instability to show the world how dangerous and unstable America is. Like, no offense, Hassan, but you haven't talked at all about how the fact that the majority of Americans have some obvious racism towards Chinese people. Wait, what? Okay. Yeah, they do. How can we have a conversation about global trade without some radlib coming in here and being like, you know, Americans are very xenophobic? I know, dude. Who cares? Okay, that's not what we're talking about right now. Yeah, I know. Americans are very racist by and large. You know, it is what it is.
Directly between him and President Xi himself. Now, this has been what the White House has been communicating to Beijing for several months now. But on the other side, we also know that Beijing does not really want to have that high-level meeting. What they've been trying to do is open communications at a lower level. And so really there's been this stalemate and no talks at all going on right now between the Trump administration and that of
the American racist attitude towards China is so negligible in this conversation. You think that's the reason why Trump is making these decisions? No, that's just a marketing technique that will, just like the peasant statement is a great opportunity for the Chinese government to tell its citizenry to remain strong in the face of oppression, because a big part of why they love Mao, a big part of Chinese development comes off of the backs of a century of humiliation from Western powers, okay, and of course Japan as well, but like that in and of itself is something that's very important. So it's a galvanizing factor there. But the real reasons as to why these great powers behave in the ways that they do is not because of racism. It's still very much the fear of losing capitalism and the dominance of capital, global capital, more so than racism against the Chinese or Orientalism. Base material, dude, you are so uneducated and weak on Maoism in China. Maoism is Stalinism, and China today is not socialist. They are capitalist.
President Xi. Now,
What is it with leftists and their obsession with Marxist orthodoxy, despite the fact that China itself is adhering to Marxism by examining their own material conditions? I mean, it's ironic because, like, in some ways, I understand why you would hold on to a mythological understanding of what previous relatively successful socialist experiments have looked like. I get it, because it's not like we have living, breathing socialism here in the United States of America. So you look to historical examples of where socialism has been attempted. You know, USSR is, I think, a valid project to point to. But then, ironically enough, that person then turns around and goes, but they haven't adhered to the principled Marxist orthodoxy. When you talk about Stalin's attempts or Mao's attempts, like, they're not also adhering to principled Marxist orthodoxy either. And they shouldn't, regardless. This is precisely the reason why I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, they're not completely controlled by the workers. They're doing a lot better than we are, okay?
Hurdle of what
nor did Lenin. Traditional Marxist Orthodox thought Germany is where the revolution would start. I think that was a fair assessment, to be fair. I think that was a fair assessment to make at the time.
We're hearing behind the scenes here at the White House is that the president believes that President Xi does not want to be seen as weak. And that's really as well kind of what's coming into this refusal and waiting to see who blinks first here. Now, we've also heard President Donald Trump say that he is confident that he can reach a deal at some point. He said that he believes China will come around. He said China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how to go about it. They're proud people.
I love the conversations that we're having in here right now about, like, whether China has a principled Maoist stance, okay, or if it's evolved in a direction that you don't think is appropriate, even though I haven't seen you attempt living, breathing, existing socialism, okay? But meanwhile, our leadership in the United States of America is like, they're gonna call me tomorrow. Like, we are led by delusional morons, okay? and you guys over here are talking about, like, I'm a left comm, or I'm an orthodox Marxian, and I don't think that China is doing enough, or whatever the fuck. It's like, dude, shut up. Just Analyze what is in front of us, okay? Eyes on the prize, guys.
We've heard similar rhetoric from some of his top economic advisors saying that the ball is now in China's court. It's clear that's not how China sees this, but I think the key question now moving forward is that really how this all is decided is going to be on how much
0.0001% of communism has been built. Keep at it, comrades. Yes.
Pain are they willing to take? How much more pain are they willing to see in this escalation of these tariffs without any real communications to ensure there's an off-ramp?
Yeah, exactly. How much pain is the Trump administration willing to endure, and also the American people? How much pain is China willing to endure as well? Elena, stick with me. Mark, in this moment, this tit for tat has been going on now, for quite some time.
Yeah. No, it's Republicans. I say your enemies in China is global capital. And this person quote tweeted me and said, no, it's Republicans. Thank you for this assessment. I loved Republicans. So I'm glad. Asmigel suddenly watching China Observer content about how the U.S. tariffs are already causing the collapse of Chinese factories. He has no defense about even the most obvious propaganda. It's awesome. Yes, it's copium. They're engaging in copium. The problem is the more copium that you inhale, okay, the more copium that you inhale, the more delusional you become and the more confused you become when things don't pan out the way that you expect them to. At the top of the hour, you're like, I want to subscribe. But now, because of the tariffs, the $6 a month subscription has turned into a $16 a month subscription because Amazon is no longer making as much money. Because Amazon Prime has now become infinitely more expensive, even though it's for free as long as you have an Amazon Prime account, which, by the way, in the interim, you should subscribe to me. Even though I don't actually serve top of the hour ad breaks, you should still subscribe for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get one free Prime subscription a month. Use it on your favorite broadcaster. Hopefully that's me. Thank you, Barry Balls, for the 10 community gifted subs. Hasan's Art of the Deal.
Why do you think, and what are you hearing about why Xi Jinping is speaking out in this moment?
I think really two reasons, Kate. Number one, simply being
Frosty Server, thank you for the 5.
The Chinese economy, in addition to what's happening now, is already dealing for Xi Jinping to continue to build national...
They shut him off. They were like, no more China lies.
Unity to build national pride as it deals with yet another economic headwind. And then the other reason, if we look at the calendar, Xi Jinping is about to embark on a trip to Cambodia, to Vietnam, and Malaysia. These are key trading partners. These are relationships that he has been strengthening over the years. So as he builds bridges to these other nations, it's a way to also project some stability and to let the world know where China stands and that it is a strong, formidable player.
Absolutely. Vietnam, one of the nations also that the Trump administration is trying to prioritize and renegotiating a trade deal now. All of it related, likely none of it a coincidence in this moment. Mark, thank you so much. Elena at the White House for us, as always. Thank you guys very, very much.
Kit, while I have you, and this is actually some information that we just received right now from the State Council Tariff Commission, saying in a statement a short while ago that China will be raising retaliatory tariffs on U.S. imports to 125%. This is information that's just coming into CNN right now, again, citing the State Council Tariff Commission. I'm curious what your immediate reaction is with your expertise, this counterstrike, shall we call it, from China directed at the U.S. business market.
It's not so surprising, you know, in the sense that they'll do the same. The key, of course, is that the U.S. is the big importer. The Chinese don't import anything like as much from the United States as the United States imports from China. So other countries come back with a tariff response, but the whole starting point from this in the United States was we're running a massive trade deficit, and we don't run big surpluses with anybody. So we can raise tariffs on you, and if you retaliate, it has less impact on us net. So I'm not massively surprised. It just keeps the whole thing, the chance of quick resolution and of us getting back to a world of free trade seem to be fading, and there will be a negative growth effect around the world that it's going to be hard to avoid now.
Fascinating. And finally, Kit, I'm curious, what are some of those factors that, and speaking of foreign investment, what are some of those factors that can tend to scare foreign investors away from U.S. assets? Is it this talk of tariffs?
No, I think it's if the tariffs reduce the profitability of U.S. companies, do I need to own so many of my U.S. equities? They've done fantastically. Am I worried that if the Chinese decide they no longer want to hold US treasuries to the size that they used to, that I'm going to cause a loss of the US Treasury market's really important status as the safest asset in the world, and the rise in US yields? Some of it reflects weaker demand, so people are going to pay much more attention to Treasury auctions going forwards from here. But another part of it, quite simply, is foreigners have accumulated $65 trillion worth of US assets. That's a lot of your money to have parked in one place. And if you're worried that the US is withdrawing into itself a little bit more now, maybe you want to lighten up and put some of it somewhere else if you can.
We got to leave it there. Kit Jukes, thank you so much for your expertise. We're really glad that we have that insight. Appreciate you.